joking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my father would make sure he bought gas there if Bob was open when he came from the city in. The city was 16 miles away. And if my dad's tank was low, he wouldn't top it in the city. He'd go by there and make sure he topped it up with Bob.
Oh, yeah, the loyalty.
And my dad would coast down the hills in neutral to save fuel down the Salmon River Hill and whatever.
Really?
And I thought, well, how ridiculous is that? And then I'm reading on 30s cars, and 30s cars had a freewheeling option. So when you laid off the gas, the car automatically went into neutral. And it freewheeled.
Seriously?
And that was to save gas, right? So gas might have been cheap, you thought? No, not cheap enough. So freewheeling was originally to save gas, besides in the two-cycle motor.
Wow.
And I go, wow, that you never stop learning that.
No, I didn't realize that.
And my father, when it came to saving money or being careful, he led the group. He was good at it. Yeah. That's
Really?
where all the house lights had to be shut off and the doors closed, preserving heat. And that was my father's mantra. When I bought my first house, I couldn't wait to tease the hell out of my father. I got so tired of it. I would listen. I only got him once out of 20 times, right? He would listen. And if you didn't flush the toilet, flush the toilet. No, I didn't hear the light go out. Oh, you didn't close the door. I remember them all. God, we hated it. And of course, we didn't close the door. We didn't flush the toilet.
That probably came from his ship days.
Who knows? That was my father.
On the ship.
He wasn't.
As
My father was meant to be an accountant. He definitely had an eye for detail when it comes down to that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, do you remember as a kid hanging out at Bob's garage, like with
No way. That was
allowed?
Forbidden. No kids were allowed in there.
No, oh, okay, because they were talking bad words.
Yeah, no, wait, no. You just bought your chocolate bar and you got the hell out, and you paid full price too. And of course, Bob had the old account going for everybody. Count for gas, count for repairs, because Bob would get the work where somebody else wouldn't, because you could get it on credit. And then, of course, he had to chase them down and get the money, and that was all part of having a small business there. And lots of people were poor. And lots of people Bob didn't collect from. And that's just how it was. That was sense of community. And Bob could really ill afford it, but that's what you did. All those Stoner corners.
Wow.
Stoner, yeah. Corner store operations like
Yeah,
that.
the
In
little
those days, they
store.
survived because of credit and because of families. And families would be unemployed and they could starve. And you just shut up. That's what you did. And the churches would help and the local women's groups would help. That's what a lot of it was about. There was no EI. There was no food bank, nothing. So the community was. And they would just quietly, you didn't want to insult people, make them look bad. Food just showed up at the front porch. Food just showed up and they left. Nobody knew where it came from. That's how it was.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a shame to...
They managed, Ted.
Yeah.
They looked after each other. That was very important. The women looked after the women. If the man drank and whatever, they didn't judge. They just made sure the children were looked after or got fed.
Wow.
If the guy was bad, beating the kids or whatever, don't worry. They had their way of looking after a lot of that stuff too. That was the elephant in the room back in the day. I can remember sitting and just getting a feeling of that when they would talk about certain people, right? You could tell.
Really?
No. Well, you didn't do the restraining order. The community did the restraining order. Our next door neighbor, next to my mom and dad, her husband was an alcoholic. And he was beating the wife. And he was coming home drunk. This is where they parked the car in the front lawn and all the doors were open all night. And they walked into the house, I won't mention the name, and they crawled in, 5 guys, on all 4s. One guy on the first step, he went to sleep there. Second guy, top of the porch. The other guy made it in. One guy never got out of the car. And that woman's life was so bad that all the women on Slayter Street got together and they purchased a ticket and they flew the woman out, sent her back to Newfoundland with her children. That's how they did things.
Wow.
So you took care of the problem.
Yeah.
If the wife didn't have enough sense, then you gave her that option. And I think she came back eventually, much to their chagrin. But that's what they did. And she had 2 young kids. And he was in the armed services. We often had people from the armed forces come door to door, knock on the door, and ask what you know about the guy next door. One man was a helicopter pilot. Did he drink? And they have rumors of it. That happened in our neighborhoods. Alcohol was a bad thing. It was as bad as drugs are today.